Hello there, I'm David Tickner, Chief Executive of the Civil Service Retirement Fellowship, and I'm delighted to welcome you to 60 Voices, a special podcast we've launched to celebrate our 60th anniversary. We'll be sharing the fascinating stories and personal reflections of former civil servants as they look back on their careers and the impact they had on the nation. 60 Voices will conserve and preserve these important work memories. From the challenges they faced to the memorable moments that define their work, each episode offers a unique personal insight into the history of the UK's civil service and the people who helped shape it. Whether you're a former colleague or someone interested in public service, we invite you to join us as we explore the voices behind decades of dedication, service, and legacy. Before we kick off, I'd like to introduce my regular co-host for the podcast, Denise Headley. Denise is the Deputy Chief Executive of the Civil Service Retirement Fellowship and has an extensive background in broadcasting and commentary. And joining us for this festive special, as it's going to be released in December, is Keith Sullens. Keith is a former CSRF board director and also a former group chair of the Mid-Sussex Group, and his early civil service work memories have a particular connection to the CSRF, as we will discover during the show. So a big welcome to you, Keith, as well.
Thank you very much, David.
Nice to see you, Keith.
And we're delighted to have you on board. We're going to launch you in with an easy question, we think, or maybe not. Which is, why did you choose the civil service as a career?
I won't give you the real reason, but
we want the real reason.
Well, I was in the sixth form at a grammar school, and I didn't want to go to university, which was not very popular with the masters because they liked everybody in the sixth form to go to university. But because sixth forms in those days were actually quite small and, dare I say, a little bit select. Anyway, they did run a class for people who wanted to go in the civil service. And so I had some special training for the civil service EO, Executive Officer competition to get direct entrant executive officers into the civil service. And I passed that, fortunately, and I was allocated to the department which I'd chosen, which was the Ministry of Pensions and National Insurance. Because one of the other things that I was keen on was, if I was going to do this, then it would be a bit of public service, something that you hear something about these days, but not very much.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I thought that department, the Ministry of Pensions, which paid sickness benefit and injury benefit and maternity benefit, retirement pensions, and all that sort of stuff. I thought if I did that, that would be a contribution. So,
am I right in saying when you were saying about this, you had an exam in it? I mean, was the school? Did they invite civil service in as part of a careers week, or is it something that's part of the curriculum?
No. What they at the school they had, you sorted out your own career really.
Okay.
They did give you a lot of advice because they were keen on people going to university, so they didn't really have any real push to go in any particular direction. And if I went into a bank or the insurance, which were the other, as I was on the arts side, there's not that many openings.
Yeah.
And those were the three things that I thought I might be able to do. But then I saw that to progress in your career in the bank or in the insurance company, you had to take more exams. And I was actually ifed off with studying and taking exams.
Yeah.
But if I take the civil service exam and I get through, I won't have any more exams to take. In my career.
Did you have to go? Some of the two other people we've interviewed so far in the series had two very different entry experiences in civil service. One said that she actually had to travel quite a long distance to take a civil service exam. I think she went all the way from London all the way down to Bristol. And the other, I think, did one in London. But the exams you took, did you take them local to the school or at the school?
No.
Or did you have to go to?
Yeah, London.
Oh, you did go to London.
We went to London. Yes, I went to London, and yes, it was at the Civil Service Commission. I forget where the address was, but yeah, that's where it was held. Yeah.
Lovely to meet you as well. And so thank you so much for coming to be part of this 60 Voices podcast. You know, when you looked at the civil service, you mentioned that it had certain benefits. Did that attract you also to a career in the civil service? Because when we spoke to one of our other contributors, one of the things she said that attracted her was that it gave you, you know, like you said, a pension, it gave you benefits, and those things weren't necessarily available in other areas of career choice. So was that also a feature, the fact that you had that sort of, for want of a better word, that support service along with the career role, you know, that you...
Yes, that was certainly made it attractive. And when I joined, I was trained for 3 months, and the guy that trained me, he was very, very good on that. He said, you know, you've joined a very good outfit for the, you know, you've got this index-linked pension, and you know, you've got, and I mean, I'm asthmatic, so you know, that also you get quite 6 months sick pay and all that stuff. So it was quite, you know, I think to myself, oh yeah, you've made the right choice here.
Was anybody in your family previously involved in the civil service, or was it just like, you know, this is a different route, I'm taking it?
No, it wasn't actually, funnily enough. But when I joined, I met my wife in the office, and her father worked in the office, and my parents ultimately, in their 50s, joined my office.
Wow.
We took over the Paymaster General's office. No, it was no, that was.
So when you obviously passed your exam, you went in. I mean, is Ministry of Pensions and National Insurance is what we would now call the DWP? Is that right? Or
Yes, it's a number of different things, DHSS and all that stuff.
yeah, but I think currently the acronym is the Department of Work and Pensions. And I think, if memory serves me correct, you began not far from Fellowship Office. You were down the road in Lewisham, isn't that right? Where you started?
Lewisham National Insurance Office in Rushy Green, Catford. Yes, that's where I started. And yeah, my daily commute from Hassocks, where I then lived, was getting on the train and going from Haywards Heath, from Hassocks to Haywards Heath, where I changed, went up to London Bridge, where I then got a train down to Lewisham. When I then got a bus
Oh
to,
my goodness!
I got a bus to Rushy Green.
How did that take to get to work?
It took about an hour and a half, I think. So it wasn't too bad because I got good connections. You know, there was just trains just happened to come at the right time. So
Sounds like it's more efficient then, Keith, than it is now. I do almost the same journey as you do on the same line, and it certainly is not as 1.5 hours. I pay my season tickets, so I feel I've been invested. Exactly. What do you remember of Lewisham in presumably the early 60s? What was that like working?
Lewisham, it was, yeah, I enjoyed it. I was only there for 2 years because a circular came round inviting people to swap jobs with people who were being transferred to Crawley. So I transferred to Crawley at that time. But yes, Lewisham, I enjoyed my time there. It was quite character forming because there were I was on a short-term benefits section, which was sickness benefit, injury benefit, maternity benefit payments, and the well, I lost my thread now. Yeah, it was when I joined, I was the junior executive officer. There were 3 sections in the room doing the same thing because it was quite a large area that was covered. So we had quite a lot of claimants, and I ended up even in that 2 years, the 2 senior people to me left, And I was then the senior EO there, to whom everybody, because the other two people were newcomers. One was another fresher like me from school. And that it was an interesting experience because I was 18 years old.
Wow.
And I was in charge of people, one of whom was 60, and another one who was a re-employed former executive officer, because you couldn't, if you got married as she had, you couldn't retain your status. You had to revert to become a clerical officer. So she was there. She was one of the section.
How do you keep? Because she got married.
Yeah, no, she yeah, it was the marriage bar. You couldn't actually.
Which lasted quite late in the day, didn't it?
It did, yeah.
That's for a lot longer than would be politically acceptable now.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't have been allowed them to do that, no. But yeah, so I had a, and that was quite, as I say, quite character forming, particularly as you go in there, you sit there, nothing. Well, you do. I mean, I've been trained, but you can only get a certain amount of understanding of the whole thing, and managing staff and organising work and things like that. Of course, although they can teach you some of it, the rest you have to really learn on the job. And I was very lucky in that the section I had, that they tried to they weren't difficult. They could have been difficult, but they were.
I'm just going to ask you a little bit more about that, Keith, because I think that's interesting, the work environment that you're talking about. Because if I think to myself, how would I feel, or how would other people feel if a very young person is coming in and they're very senior? And from what I've been able to learn with working within the CSRF, it's very hierarchical, the civil service. So if you have a young person who many people might not feel have paid their dues and they're in that role. So how, what was that sort of like culture like that? Was it very, obviously hierarchical? How did that work?
Well,
around?
what I started off by saying to them that I wanted to be called Mr. Sullens, you see. If you can imagine, pompous little git, So anyway, after a while, they started calling me Sir.
Was you happy with that?
I didn't mind really. It was suggested to me by the person that trained me that this was, a good way to sort of maintain some sort of distance from, the staff. But I mean, I think it stayed until almost to the time when I left. So for about a year and a half, they probably, it was there. Then I think they started calling me Keith, and that was all right,
We had one of our former contributors was actually on the hierarchy question, was saying that people had to stand up. When in a room, when anyone senior came in, they were expected to stand up from their desks when someone senior entered the room. So
no, it wasn't as hierarchical as that, but no, it was quite.
So the Crawley angle, Keith. I mean, obviously you were in Lewisham for a couple of years, and then you saw the job advert for the Paymaster General's office, presumably, which. Yes. And was that a brand new setup, or was it relocated to Crawley?
They've been going for 100 and something years. Oh, right. Yeah, the office. Yes, 100. It was formed in about 1850.
The CSRF, the Civil Service Retirement Fellowship, is a charity set up for civil servants by civil servants. In 1960, Douglas Houghton MP highlighted the need for an organisation that supported retired civil servants, offering friendship and companionship. 59 years later, we are still carrying on his dream. You can find out more about the CSRF at our website, www.csrf.org.uk. Why not sign up to become a digital donor for £3, less than the price of coffee? Or you may wish to volunteer. Contact us via the website.
So for the benefit of listeners, could you just give us a quick explanation as to what the Paymaster General's office actually did?
Well, when I joined, it was paying public service pensions. That is pensions
Okay.
for the civil service. Believe it or not, it was a sort of self-perpetuating, really. And the teachers, NHS, former officers in the armed forces. Some of them were paid. They were paid at all different times. Some were paid monthly. Some were paid quarterly. Some were paid in arrears. Some were paid in advance. Yeah, some were weekly. Yeah, it was.
So, well, because you remember,
Not only that,
Yeah.
I should finish because that was my area that I worked in, but they also kept the accounts for the other departments, the other government departments.
Oh, very
And
interesting.
they had close contact with the Bank of England, because they used to tell the Bank of England how much money the government would need to cover their bills for the day, because we accounted for the payments that the departments made. So they issued payable orders, which were like checks, which all ended up back at the Paymaster General's office and were matched with schedules which the departments had sent to us. So they'd all got the amounts that's on the check, had to tally obviously with the amount that we'd been told to expect on that particular check. So that was quite a paper-intensive exercise on a daily basis.
But was the department, I mean, Crawley, I mean, if my history, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, that must have been at the sort of early stages of its sort of flashy development as a new town, no, when Paymaster General moved down there in the 60s. I mean, Crawley is what was technically like Milton Keynes, was one of those new towns that was built. So is that why the department was moved into that area, or was it previously? Because I would assume for something over 100 years old, it may have originated or originally been in Whitehall. No, I mean,
Yes, we were at Russell Square when I first moved there,
oh right,
and that's where the office had been.
yeah,
That'd been earlier in Whitehall, I think, but when I went, it was in
Russell Square.
Yeah. Yes, it was quite our office was a new built in the late 60s. So we were at sort of different temporary accommodation around Crawley until the office was completed, and we moved in a bit piecemeal, and the computer group moved in first, because by then I'd passed aptitude tests and they decided that I could be a programmer. A computer programmer. I don't believe it. It's embarrassing, isn't it, really? But it was all mainframes then, not these little tiddly things. Huge mainframes that you could walk between the banks of storage in their
Wow.
in their cabinets. And oh yes, we had a big air-conditioned computer hall and all that sort of things, because we were computerizing everything. We building systems for banking and pensions, and I was involved in the development of the pension systems, taking over from punch cards. And
Wow.
When you say a punch card, what did you have to do with that?
I didn't have anything to do with the punch cards. That was already in operation when I went there. It was in operation, and they were going to convert all that into stuff for into input for the new computer systems that we were building, because they then had their input from paper tape, which was punched by our punched card group girls punched tape girls who punched from forms that have been filled in by the clerical staff, to sort of say this is a new pensioner and they live so and so, they're getting so much pension, and that was all put onto forms and punched into paper tape, put into the computer, and then we set up a computer record for each pensioner. The banking it had something similar for their departments, where they had obviously department headers and the information from the schedules that they sent through of all the payments that they made was all they feed in and put into the system, so that when the checks came back, they had the MICR line on the bottom, the sort of funny thing like on a check.
Yeah.
Check
The numbers
at
at
the
the
bottom.
back.
Right at the bottom, it's got a lot. Well, we had those on our payable orders, and we had a reader that read those and matched it up with the record that should have been sent by the department, and so we should know how much that the claim was for.
I just think it's very interesting because part of my career was I used to be a benefits advisor, and I used to be a benefits advisor, and I also worked for a very long time at Age UK. So my primary role was basically supporting older people, mature people with getting benefits. So I've got a rough idea of the benefit system. So when you talked about maternity benefit, you talked about sickness benefit, I can see the way in which we've had essentially evolved, because quite a lot of those legacy benefits now are being phased out. So, and the DWP is taken on a completely different form, because it says here in your contribution, it said that the agency, I think it became an office agency in 1993, and you were made the chief executive following the public competition. I mean, that's a big leap. So would you give us a little bit on that?
Well, it didn't mean a lot, because I knew this was coming down the track. I wasn't sort of too surprised that I was going to have to apply for my job, basically, because that's what I was doing. So I knew a lot about what I was doing, and I was able to say, "Oh yes, I've got ideas for doing this, that, and the other, and all that stuff." So I was fortunate in securing my job back again.
That must have been a bit nerve-wracking.
Very nerve-wracking, yes, because I thought, well, if I don't get, who's going to want a 40-something-year-old former civil servant?
That's quite an achievement. Given the fact that you were 40, I mean, that's already, obviously, from an aspirational point of view, you achieved. You were in charge of the place in Lewisham at the age of 18, and obviously in Affini, and then chief executive in mid-40s.
I was only in charge of one small section in the East.
Don't diss it. It's still responsibility, though.
Oh, yes, it was. Oh, yes, and because one of the things we did on when I was working in Lewisham was there were about 13 EOs on there, and each Saturday morning, they opened on a Saturday morning, and each EO had to take a turn to be the senior person in the in the office on that Saturday morning, and I had to take my turn. And if they wanted to see the manager, wheeled in to see me. Goodness knows what they thought. I really don't know. Particularly because I didn't know much. All I knew about was sickness benefits. They come in asking about retirement pensions and that sort of stuff. No idea what they're talking about.
It says in here also that you took redundancy in 1999. So from 1993 to 1999. How did that whole thing come about, and how did you feel about the whole redundancy situation? Did they handle it well or not?
No, well, by that time I'd been, I'd been privatised, and
Yeah, that's right.
I was working from whenever it was 1997. I think they finally paid the money over, and I was absorbed into EDS.
Oh yes, the people who won the bid, isn't it?
The people who won the bid. I'd led a bid team, and I'll tell you this now. We bid about 6 or 7 million. And the team that won bid about 23. So
wow.
So there's no way that they could have worked it out for us to have taken over, because they couldn't justify it.
Yeah.
So that's how we managed to lose that. Cost me a few quid too, but never mind. So I have to say, EDS treated me very well. They were. Mind you, I think the Treasury had leaned on them. I because I said to the Treasury, why don't you make me redundant? I'm not there anymore. I'm quite happy to be redundant. So, I went and worked for them, and I became the Global Data Protection Officer for EDS.
Wow.
I learned a lot about data protection. That's why I'm so incensed. I'm still incensed, David,
About GDPR or about the whole data protection thing?
about the fact that they won't give us these names and addresses.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, just for context, Denise, we've had a long-standing, as an organisation, a long-standing battle with data protection restrictions. And when the CSRF was first formed, they used to get, if you like, leads, which was contact information of anybody who was about to retire. And in the old fellowship office, and I think we've still got some old photos, which I'll see if I can dig out for the 60th, they used to have these little, they were like Rolodex information of it all came in print form, but they would get advanced information of people retiring, and then the headquarters would then disseminate that information to the branches and groups, who then were able to send. And I think when we had lots of people would go and knock on doors or say,
Right.
this is where your local group is, etc., etc. So they had a massive network. But when they brought in data protection, that literally brought the crowbar or the axe down. It completely stopped that free flow of information for no reason at all, because as we have continued to argue and still do GDPR, we are not seeking to sell somebody something. We're not seeking to harvest someone's data. We're seeking to make them aware of the services that are available to them as former civil servants. And there's never been a proper acceptance of that, which is very sad.
Because when you think about Keith's role in the effectively inaugural setting up of the CSRF, and this is one of the reasons I was really keen and so happy to talk to you, Keith, because the CSRF and that whole idea has lived on, and we're now celebrating 60 years, and you were one of the people who was actually involved in the beginning of setting up this organization. The CSRF, the Civil Service Retirement Fellowship, is a charity set up for civil servants by civil servants. In 1960, Douglas Houghton MP highlighted the need for an organisation that supported retired civil servants, offering friendship and companionship. 59 years later, we are still carrying on his dream. You can find out more about the CSRF at our website, www.csrf.org.uk. Why not sign up to become a digital donor for £3, less than the price of coffee? Or you may wish to volunteer. Contact us via the website. Just tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, we want to know. We want the inside track.
Well, I wish I could give you more information, because my role in that was really fairly small. But we were. You will probably known John Vetch. Did you know John Vetch?
I know the name. He was a very key player in the early days of the CSRF, and I think he wrote one of the short histories of the organisation as well.
Yeah. And the reason was that he was the assistant Paymaster General at the time.
Oh.
So that's how we got to do this, because he was obviously a key mover in the setting up of the organisation. And he probably said to him, "No, it's all right. My chaps can do that. We send out letters to everybody, And that's what they did. And my section was one of those tasked with looking through all our records and sending letters to all the retired civil servants. And they got a terrific response. I mean, I don't know how many right at the outset there. I can only say that because I did later on, some years later, when I was the head of pensions, I went and gave a talk to people, members of the CSRF, in place in Croydon somewhere. And
Oh, right. This is one of the original meetings. I think the first 4 meetings they had were Guildford, Liverpool, Plymouth, and Birmingham.
Yeah.
They were all held, as you can see, in public halls. In the good old days where there were people who turned up with a cigarette in hand, or all the rest of it. But they did have phenomenal response. I mean, this photo, I think it's from Birmingham, but we've got pictures which will certainly run next year of the opening meetings in all 4 of those locations. Obviously, I'm guessing that an awful lot of these people were people who formerly worked in your department. Because presumably or did you write to anybody who was a retired civil servant?
Oh yes, it was a whole lot.
Oh, the whole lot. So
It
across
was
the whole.
a blanket over all the civil service that we paid pensions to got a letter. So
Wow.
it was a really major, and I mean, it cost obviously a fair bit of money, because I think they had to pay staff overtime because it was extra work, and yeah, they had the postage to pay, as well. So it was not a cheap exercise, and yet now they don't give us a bean. I mean, it's scandalous. I think it's scandalous.
And I think it's also very sad, because what happens is that the civil service family and community, they don't have that connection in the way that they would have had if they would continue to provide us with that support and maintain that link with us. So we become, you become less disconnected from the people who you're serving, but you also become less disconnected to the people who were working with you previously.
That's right. Yeah.
Work for, how long was your civil service career?
Yeah, mine was about 30. Must have been about 30 something years. 30.
Wow.
And do you still keep in touch, Keith, with the people that you work with? I mean, have you still got connections?
We have a reunion meeting every year.
Oh, jolly good.
Yes, every October we hire it's the Crawley Horticultural Society Hall,
Wow.
and we get it. It's not very many these days. It's reducing because after the privatisation, of course, it's all gone to pot, really. I mean, people are getting older, just like me. Yeah, there's
But it's nice that you still have that opportunity to connect with people you work with.
there's about 50 or 60 still. There used to be the office. The number of staff when I was there was around about 600. Yeah.
But I think that's important, Keith, because I think especially with what we're doing, this conservation, I look at it as a conservation podcast, because I think the work memories are so important for us to preserve. And to meet somebody who was actually at the beginning stages of the CSRF, for me, it's an honor, because I think it's a really important organization. And when I first joined the CSRF, my gran used to work as a civil servant. Yeah, she used to attend the Islington group. I mean, she's passed away now, but the point I'm making is that something that came as maybe an idea out of, people think, oh no, come on, we can get it done, we can do it, and we get it done. Then you have this generational legacy that comes as a part of it. We're able to speak to someone who was there at the beginning, and you can see the hands of the civil service shaping many people's lives in a way maybe we didn't think about. I mean, that's a really important thing to bring out.
I think we found your gran on the database, and she was listed there.
Yeah, she was still on there. So, I mean, it's an important thing that you've done. We are sorry in a way that we don't have that relationship that we used to have in terms of access to people. But hopefully, with some of the work that we're doing, we're slowly clawing our way back in.
Got a formidable supporter in Denise, Keith, in the sense that she shares my passion for the organisation. And she's also great at challenging the way in which things are done in a way that is all embracing. And as a consequence, the fresh perspective of how we approach things has been very evident in the last 2 to 3 years. So I'm certainly very grateful, A, to have a deputy, but B, to have somebody who's so enthusiastic and also going to work with. So hence us doing our double act on the podcast, you say. So
it's good.
So how would you say, Keith, that your working career shaped your life? Because I've looked at some of the things that you've done subsequent to that. I mean, there was also a restaurant and social group that I picked up on in your bio. So how would you say that it shaped your life socially, your viewpoint, the things that you got to do, your retirement?
Yes, I don't think it's, I think having the responsibilities that I did from a fairly young age, um, I was relatively sort of shy and retiring, I think. But you couldn't you couldn't do that anymore if you're in the charge of a group of 8 people paying benefits and things, and then ultimately a group of sort of 600, 700 people paying and accounting for government expenditure. You couldn't really remain a shy and retiring person. So I think you have to say it personality wise that it changed me quite a bit. And I suppose I'm not afraid of confrontation or anything. I don't go out seeking it, but if it comes, it doesn't bother me. And things like that,
Would you say it was that character forming? It gave you fortitude, would you say?
yes, that's right. Yes, backed up my courage.
Well, I think
Which is
that's
a
the
good
important
thing.
thing. It's good.
Yeah.
But that's what comes through from some of the other contributors. But that the way in which they had to interact, the nature of their involvement. I mean, it changed them significantly to the extent where that some of the choices they made in later life were as a consequence of the work that they were doing and the people that they were meeting. So let me just ask you a quick question in relation to your sporting activities, because it says here you like to play football and tennis. Are you still doing a bit of five-a-side? What position do you play?
Well, we don't have it's fairly loose. We play just 5 aside, and it's in the gym, so we don't have to run that far. And positions don't really mean a lot on that, other than the goalkeeper.
Okay.
So I try not to go in goal.
And since retirement, what are the main things that you enjoy? I know you've got a very keen gardening green finger. I looked here. I think you're doing some green beans and some vegetables, asparagus, French beans and potatoes. I've actually grown some potatoes. I've done that, not French beans though.
All right. Oh, well, I enjoy. It's actually it's the harvesting of it that I enjoy. Right, it's the best of it's a bit hard work sometimes, but no, I'm still digging potatoes, and the potatoes I'm digging are second earlies. So
Oh, jolly good. So it's a bit like the good life in Mid Sussex, that is it, Keith?
yeah, that's it. It's the soil and the yes, the environment down here, of course, is wonderful. Housing all round us now, which we didn't have before when we moved in 50 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Changing.
And did you, I mean, obviously, as someone who was present during the formation, did you expect it when you, I mean, it's not a catch question, but did you expect the CSRF to still be there 60 years on? I mean, from when you were sending all the letters off, you think, oh, that's rather a good idea. Well, you obviously did because you engaged with the organization when you retired. But I wonder what your thoughts were about the fact that we are still here, albeit on a reduced level than what we were when we started. But we are still here. We are still delivering the services that we were 48. We are still all about friendship and support,
Yeah. No, no, I'm I'm not I'm not altogether surprised, but I think had we been able to continue um, to have the names and addresses, I'm sure um, we would have done better than we are in recruiting people.
Yeah.
100% Keith.
And it just I just get cross when I think about that. It's so obviously how they could even have made it when people join, saying, look, this is what happens when you retire. It's part of your retirement process is this. And, we have a welfare group, and we have a social media group, and this is, but they don't. And
I mean, it is a very different. I mean, I think one of the things we've also picked up on from some of our conversations is that we are dealing with an entirely different formation in the civil service to what how it was constructed, and people don't have careers for life anymore. Where you were able to. You joined obviously at the age of 18, and you worked right the way through your professional career, took a break, then went back again. But I think most of the people we chat to are there for a sort of maybe 8 to 10 years, and then go off and work in the private sector, or even shorter. They get the training, they obviously get the experience, and then they're like, well, we're straight off to the private sector in whatever capacity it may be. So I think it is very different. And I think that we also accept we need to evolve, but at the same time, we shouldn't lose sight of what we were created to deliver. And I think that sort of balance is always important to keep in the front and the back of the mind, of everything we do.
Oh, yes, definitely. Yes. Tricky.
Exactly. Well, Keith, I think it would be fair to say it's been a pleasure to have you on today. And I'd like to say a big thank you to you for giving us your time. And hopefully, like everybody else, you enjoyed the experience.
Oh, yes, very much so. Thank you.
We have a clean sweep, Dee. So far, everyone's enjoyed it. Let's live. Exactly.
It's lovely to speak to you, Keith, because I particularly feel, that it's important to speak to people who are, for want of a better word, the originators. And that helps to keep you grounded, because if you don't know where you come from, you don't know where you're going. So it's fabulous to have you here, speak to you, and to someone who was actually here at the beginning when this organization was set up. And we're still going, Keith. We're still going.
Absolutely. And we will look forward to I'm embarking on quite a gigantic UK round trip to support all of the groups in 2025. And obviously, as you are my local group in Mid Sussex, I will certainly be having a pit stop to catch up with everybody at some point during the 60th anniversary. But thank you ever so much for your time. And I just obviously do my concluding remarks. If you've enjoyed this episode, we'd encourage you to help spread the word about this podcast. Tell your colleagues, friends, and family. If you'd like to participate, you can reach out to us using the contact information on our website, which is www.csrf.org.uk. But we thank you very much for listening, and we hope you'll join us for our next episode that will be coming up in the new year. So on behalf of Denise and myself, we'd like to wish you all a very happy Christmas and whatever you're doing. And if you're listening to this in January, you can think back on what you did at Christmas. But we very much enjoyed the first 3 episodes of our 60 Voice podcast. We've got much more coming up throughout our 60th anniversary year in 2025. So thank you all very much for listening, and enjoy your seasonal break.
Thank you as well, Keith.
Okay, thank you. Nice to meet you.
The CSRF, the Civil Service Retirement Fellowship, is a charity set up for civil servants by civil servants. In 1960, Douglas Houghton MP highlighted the need for an organisation that supported retired civil servants, offering friendship and companionship. 59 years later, we are still carrying on his dream. You can find out more about the CSRF at our website, www.csrf.org.uk. Why not sign up to become a digital donor for £3, less than the price of coffee? Or you may wish to volunteer. Contact us via the website.